Today marks the first 200 days of the Trump administration, and with it, 200 days of delivering results and real wins for the American people. Under the leadership of President Trump and Secretary Rubio, the United States is restoring strength, securing prosperity, and standing up for American interests on the world stage.
My name is Ali Barada from Al-Sharq Al-Awsat newspaper, and my question is that Lebanon's government today took a very critical decision regarding disarming Hezbollah and to accept, in fact, the U.S. proposal to solidify the cessation of hostilities with Israel. Would you please comment on that?
Yes, what I can say is the United States welcomes the Lebanese government's decision on Tuesday to task the Lebanese armed forces with a plan to bring all weapons under state control by the end of the year. This is an important step towards Lebanese sovereignty. We continue to watch developments in Lebanon very closely. Special Envoy Tom Barrack made it clear what the president needs to see. As long as Hezbollah retains arms, words will not suffice. The Lebanese armed forces must fully commit and act now to fully implement the government's decision. The credibility of Lebanon's government rests on its ability to match principle with practice.
My question is about China. While both the US and Chinese leaders are trying to have a summit meeting in the near future, the Russian and Chinese navies carried out joint exercises in the Sea of Japan, including anti-submarine drills. And China continues to purchase Russian oil. So how are you concerned of the China's move that might help Russia?
Well, for the specifics, let me take that back and see if we can get further details for you on that. What I can say, though, is we've been clear about how the United States views itself as a Pacific nation. We are a Pacific nation. We've seen the highest levels of engagement with our allies and partners across the region. The fact that we stand with our allies and partners across the region, both the Secretary, of course, going to the region, but other high-level delegations from this department over just the last few weeks. So we've seen that engagement, we've seen that commitment here, and that engagement will continue.
And it's been reported that Indian Prime Minister Modi is set to visit China for the first time in 7 years. And Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has criticized the U.S. tariffs imposed on countries including Brazil and India. So are you concerned that China and other BRICS countries are trying to take the lead in organizing a kind of pushback against U.S. trade measures?
Well, what I can say in terms of India is the president has been very clear in terms of the concerns he has regarding the trade imbalance, regarding the concerns he has when it comes to the purchase of Russian oil. You've seen him take action directly on that, and I refer you to the president's comments for that. India is a strategic partner with whom we engage in a full and frank dialogue. That'll continue. The Secretary also spoke to that. Like anything in foreign policy, you're not going to align 100% of the time on everything. But it is very clear, the president's been clear, the concerns that he has with the trade imbalance, the concerns he has with India purchasing Russian oil. He's been clear on that. He's taken action, and I refer you to his comments for further on that.
A report today that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation finally secured a meeting with United Nations officials. A, can you confirm that? And B, I know that GHF and the State Department have been calling for cooperation to happen, but never really an idea of what that cooperation would actually look like in practice. Can you give us an idea of what exactly the State Department envisions in a cooperative agreement between GHF and the UN?
Well, I refer you to GHF for more details on meetings they may or not be having with different organizations or the United Nations. What I can say is we've been clear is that we want to see as much aid as possible go to the people of Gaza without it being looted by Hamas. We've been clear that we want to see creative solutions, that there's a mechanism in place that has been able to deliver 110 million meals without it being looted by Hamas. We've also been clear in our concerns about how other different delivery systems have seen issues when it comes to the diversion of aid. So the specifics, we'll see exactly. The president's talked about wanting to see more aid get into Gaza. We've seen, for example, from this podium, talking about how the ambassador and Special Envoy Witkoff have briefed the president after their recent trip to the region. We'll see what specifics come out in terms of future steps, but there are many options being discussed. We want to see as much aid get to the people of Gaza without it being looted by Hamas as possible.
Follow up on Russia-Ukraine again. What is your level of trust to Putin that he is not, engaging in another delaying tactic here, and how over-optimistic, or will it be over-optimistic for us to expect anything out of this meeting, potential meeting?
Well, it's not a question of trust, it's a question of actions. The president has described how he's been disappointed in the actions that we have seen from Russia over recent weeks. He's talked about seeing actions, not just words. He's described that himself. So this is not a question of trust per se. This is a question of seeing actions to match up the words, but also is indicative of the commitment that we have made clear from the beginning of this administration, that we stand ready to aid in the pursuit of peace. to try to end this conflict, stop the carnage. That is our driving policy here. That remains our driving policy. And getting the sides to the table is key to reaching a diplomatic solution to this conflict. So it's not about trust. It's about action, and it's about doing everything we can to aid in the pursuit of peace and bring this war to an end.
I have two questions. One is related to Europe and the relationship with the US. So we've seen in the war in Ukraine a big division in Europe and the inability to sort it out. And how much the issue that we're seeing in Europe, this division, forced the president of the United States to take it over and say, hey, I have to deal with this, and try to meet Putin, because the Europeans were unable to kind of put on the table Zelensky and Putin.
Well, the president has been clear he wants to see our European partners step up in a variety of different areas. We saw, for example, the recent NATO deal in terms of weapons being sold to NATO, and then they can then give those weapons to who they wish. The president is a deal maker, as the secretary was describing just yesterday. He is a deal maker, and he's able to reach deals on behalf of the American people, but then also that lead to a safer world. So the president stands ready, like I said, to aid in the pursuit of this peace, but he has also been clear that we need to see our European partners stepping up in terms of defense spending, in terms of a whole variety of other measures here.
Now that the Israeli Prime Minister has confirmed in a Fox interview his intention to occupy all of Gaza, can you speak a little bit more on the U.S. position on this? Do you see this as a way that is helpful to secure the release of the hostages still being held there and to see humanitarian aid flow?
Well, what I can speak to is our policy and our initiatives here. And our three focuses, as the Secretary outlined yesterday, remain getting humanitarian aid into Gaza without it being looted by Hamas, remains seeing the hostages released, and remains making sure that Hamas cannot continue to exist, because there can be no long-term prosperity with Hamas as a governing force or otherwise within Gaza.
I wanted to follow up on my colleague's question about India, because I understand we've certainly heard, as you mentioned, the president's frustration and upset about India purchasing Russian oil, but we've seen a longer-term tension, it seems, rising in U.S.-India relationship. We saw Indian officials back in May who were upset about the president talking publicly about a role in having brokered a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. We saw the meeting with the Prime Minister of India that was supposed to take place at the G7 in June canceled because the president had to leave early to return to Washington. And now this tension over tariffs. Is there a concern from this department or the secretary about an overall worsening in the relationship with India and the potential for India to be turning more to China and away from the U.S. at a time when the U.S. looks to India, has been looking for many years to India as a partner?
Well, what this is about is an honest, full, and frank dialogue about real concerns that this administration has, that the president has outlined very clearly, addressing those concerns through his actions. He's spoken about them, whether it's about the purchase of Russian oil, whether it's about the trade imbalance. Addressing those concerns is important, and that's part of what it means to have a frank dialogue, to address those concerns that you have, and then hopefully have conversations to see those concerns addressed. So the president's been very clear. His concerns about what he has seen from India speak for themselves. He's truthed multiple times about it. But ultimately, this is about a frank and full dialogue, and that's what it means to advance American interests. That's what it means to really have full diplomatic dialogue with partners to address concerns that we need to see addressed.
President Truth, and this is how we call it, right? Truth, that he was hoping that all Arab nations would join the Abraham Accords. Do you have concern that Israel's decision to take over Gaza completely will, if not delay, really kind of jeopardize the ability to move forward with the Abraham Accords?
Well, I'm not going to predict the future or speak for the opinions of other governments. What I can say is that President Trump is a deal maker. President Trump wants to see peace and constructive dialogue. He knows how to make a deal. He knows how to bring people to the table. That has been evident both in the previous administration when we saw the beginning of the Abraham Accords and now the Abraham Accords then being something that many people thought would not have been possible, and yet he still was able to accomplish that with many different nations joining the Abraham Accords. So I think what's clear is that the president can accomplish what many people think is not possible. I'm not going to predict the future or speculate on how others may view certain actions, but the president remains committed on this. He's made that clear.
Can you explain why the State Department is rewriting the human rights report? I understand it's coming out soon, but it's been changed, and you're dropping certain things like LGBTQ rights. Just explain why.
Yeah, what I can say is that this human rights report, in terms of the one that is set to upcome, just for people watching at home, is set to talk about 2024. It is a series of reports for different countries. Part of the reason why we are seeing an effort to readjust this is to make it more readable, to make it more digestible, and also to reflect some of the changing priorities that we've seen from the previous administration to this one, priorities that were voted by the American people, and we at the State Department are here to carry out and fulfill. So we're seeing an ongoing conversation, and in regards to that, we're seeing an effort in order to try to make this more usable, more readable, while also reflecting the changing priorities of this administration compared to the last one.
So it's always in the past seen as not a political thing. I mean, it's you're judging people based on human rights law, and but does this mean that you see it as a political tool?
No, not at all. I mean, we have seen changes in the previous administration when President Biden took office, changes in terms of different examples that are used. Speaking of past reports, the examples in these reports are oftentimes illustrative. It highlights of ways that we want to or concerns we want to raise or conversations we want to have. So no, it's more of just making sure that we're implementing the policy and priority of this administration. It's not political in terms of how that was described.